What up, Galactic Dudes? This is Blocked Content, and we talk about video games sometimes. So, I thought it would be a good time to take a closer look at a new Nintendo 3DS title called Metroid Prime Federation Force. You might have heard of it. It's a 4-player co-op first-person shooter set in space and in the world of the Metroid Prime series. You play as the Federation soldiers that we saw briefly in the Metroid Prime games, and now we get to play as the more ordinary soldiers. So it's in concept actually quite similar to the idea of Halo ODST. You don't have all the main heroine's special powers and not even any of Samus's strength. You're pretty much a normal foot soldier, but the strength you do have comes from the magical power of friendship and a giant mech and teamwork. But before we look at how the game turned out and give it an honest review, which will be up very soon, we'll first have to take a quick look back at the history of the franchise and the announcement of Metroid Prime Federation Force. So let's dive in, shall we? You still here? Okay, let's do it. It's Metroid's 25th anniversary, and like with any long-standing franchise, this needs to be celebrated, right? Well, sadly, it didn't really happen, and Nintendo slowly is leaving the Metroid series in the dust. It's quite a shame because the games have such a rich history of being full of detail, fun, thrill, and challenge. From the first game on, Metroid for the NES, the core game staples were known. You were seemingly alone in space. You were a bounty hunter by the name of Samus, sent on a mission to investigate several space stations for a life form known as the Metroids. Samus walks in, arm cannon in her hand, and from there on out you discover great threats, awesome new abilities, even vertical gameplay, and crazy boss fights. The original Metroid even showed in an obtainable credit scene that Samus, who everyone thought was this bulky, uninspired soldier man in a suit, was actually a strong, independent woman. Later down the line, her character would be a little more fleshed out, but in the earlier days, having her identity be this progressive and influential for the gaming industry as a whole was a very big thing. Even if she didn't show that much personality, that kind of made everything, all the more intriguing. Alright, we move forward a little bit and we get to Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo. This is considered by fans to be the absolute peak of the franchise. It improved on everything the first game did by tenfold. The graphics looked stellar and the creepy atmosphere made you uneasy at times. The sound and music were so crisp and iconic, and most of all the gameplay improved so much just by little things. There was a lot more space to include a bigger story and to get to the core of what Metroid is all about. There's also this looming tension in the game that I absolutely love. I don't like standing still or waiting in Super Metroid because I feel like something could always, creep on me or jump on me at any moment. This game is also very popular in the speedrunning community because the game was so well put together that plowing through it at top speed is just very, very satisfying. This is the ultimate example of a great sequel, and I always compare it to the same jump that the Super Mario series did. Back from Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES to Super Mario World in the Super Nintendo. You improve on every single concept that was awesome about the previous game, and you get some inspirational new ideas and make it a beautiful mixture out of both. And as a kid growing up, I have to be honest, Super Metroid was always a little bit too hard for me. Almost getting to the top of a big tower only to then get hit by a small, tiny upside down enemy who you didn't see coming and then fall all the way down to the ground floor. Man, that really took me out of it sometimes, but Super Metroid isn't known to be a super easy game, and I wish I could have completed that at a younger age, but I simply didn't have the patience for it at the time. But there was soon to be a big change. Well, not really that soon. The Nintendo 64 hit store shelves, and everyone was excited for the possibilities. We were getting new entries in beloved franchises left and right. A new Super Mario in Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, a new Zelda, and later on even Pokemon and Kirby. There was no sign of a Metroid game in sight. There have been rumors about a potential Metroid 64 that was supposedly something like a 2.5D game and not anywhere close to the Prime series. This I would have loved to play or at least see, but sadly that's only a dream because there was never a real Metroid game for the Nintendo 64. There exists no footage of such a game even in alpha stages at this moment. The promise of the GameCube changed all of that because in the first announcement of Nintendo's 2000s console we were already treated with a tease of Metroid, and this looked really, really different. Metroid Prime was announced, and it took the series somewhere it's never been before. It changed the perspective to first person. Fans had always wanted something like this out of the franchise, and now finally with the GameCube they were getting it. A lot of people were pessimistic about the game, but when the game finally came out, everyone pretty much loved it. It took the idea of the atmosphere and being in a sad, new, desolate place from the earlier games and cranked it up to 11. Seriously, when you enter a new planet in Metroid Prime, you immediately feel uneasy in the best way possible. You know, you look up and you see the rain hit your visor, your breath hit the inner glass of your helmet to reveal your eyes. You know, beautiful stuff, even for, a console that was then already seen as pretty underpowered. The combat changed, of course, because first-person view allows for much more intricate gunplay. They kind of carried over the lock-on function from the Zelda games, and it worked beautifully with Metroid. Boss fights were even scarier, and there was actually a story to get through here as well, even though there was lots of room for improvement there. Luckily, it got just that, because there was also a sequel on the GameCube, which was called Metroid Prime Echoes. This game steadily changed up the formula, adding new weapons and abilities for Samus, maybe a hint of multiplayer, and most of all, they put more of an emphasis on story. Crazy stuff was happening all over. The Federation, Ridley's story arc. These games are widely viewed to be great successes. Retro Studios was firing at all cylinders. The Metroid franchise was on the rise. But this wouldn't last forever. The Wii was here, a console that divided Nintendo fandom, seemingly in two. Hardcore gamer versus casual gamer, but Nintendo didn't forget about the Metroid fans. For one, Metroid Prime Corruption was here, and it gave birth to Dark Samus, and a couple of cool story elements that shaped the Metroid universe even more. Later on, we even got the Metroid Prime Trilogy game, which at great value included all 3 games and some extras, along with Wii Remote controls for the earlier 2 games. Great job, Nintendo, that's how you do it. But here's where the big change happened. There was a lot of downtime for the franchise, and fans waited patiently for the 4th Metroid Prime. But there was another part of the fanbase that eagerly waited for something like a 2.5D Metroid, similarly to what was rumored for the Nintendo 64 way back when. The hardcore Metroid fanbase also wanted a lot more story. They wanted to really get to know Samus, what made her tick, what her backstory was, what was going on in that pretty head of hers. Well, sometimes you gotta be careful what you wish for, I suppose. The Wii release of Metroid Other M was released, and fans and critics absolutely despised the game. Not only were the controls impossibly clunky, but especially the presentation and story was cringeworthy in almost every aspect. Sure, the cutscenes looked beautiful, but it turned Metroid into some sort of weird anime soap opera, and the powerful, strong character of Samus into a generic hot chick. Then there were also the voice acting issues and many bugs in the game. And did I mention the baby Metroid? Yeah, this didn't go over well, especially with the hardcore Metroid Prime audience. They knew that the series had found its footing with the first-person view, and getting off that path meant that it might mean an uncertain or dark future ahead. And that's what it looked like. There was a hope for Metroid Fusion-styled handheld games. The handheld games have always done amazing. Aside from the Metroid Prime Hunters, which I thought was just a little clunky and underwhelming, but the consoles never really got that sort of fusion-style game. And now it was time for something brand new. A new entry in the Metroid Prime series. No way! It got announced, but this time for the Nintendo 3DS, with co-op multiplayer. Awesome, right? Well, not really. Ever since its first announcement, fans have been going insane over this game. There was outrage. Even some petitions to stop this game from ever releasing. And why? All those things sound awesome. What could be wrong with a new Metroid Prime, and even for handheld? Well, right off the bat, let me list these up for you. You don't play as Samus? Everyone is this weird chibi size? There's a paper-thin, almost non-existent story? The character design is totally simplified? Missions looked overly simple, and fears of another Metroid Prime Hunters were everywhere. The game is out, and so far it's mixed to bad reviews, with IGN and Destructoid giving it a 5.9 and a 5.5 out of 10 respectively. it might be time to let first-person handheld Metroid games go. I think the side-scrollers work perfectly for handhelds, and the bigger, more exploration-based first-person games on the consoles. That's why I think a Metroid game on the upcoming new Nintendo console might work really well. The Nintendo NX Metroid game could be crazy, even more so if the rumors are right. You know, imagine playing a first-person shooter Metroid adventure on your TV, and when it's time to go, maybe travel by train, you take the screen or the controller with you and play on the road. But these portions then switch to 2.5D to show the actual gameplay difference between the two on the road and, at home on the gaming console. How cool would that idea be? A different playstyle for a different moment in your day could work very well and maybe even help out with the resolution or frame rate when the game's playing in handheld style. Well, that's me going crazy all over the place. We're going to take a good look at Metroid Prime Federation Force and we'll give our thoughts. For now, I'm totally curious what you guys think of the game. Have you played it, or are you still skeptical? And what would you ideally want to see in a new Metroid Prime game? Maybe if it comes to Nintendo NX? Leave your awesome ideas in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to Blocked Content to keep up to date on all the cool news, roundtables, and cool animations we've got going. You can also tweet to us or check us out on Facebook at Square Things. Hope you guys have a blast with Federation Force, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.